Hey folks, it's been a little while, so I figured it was time for another video. So last time I spoke, I believe I was chatting about some of the fun 2D rendering stuff I was working on, and I've shifted gears a little bit. I do still have some 2D stuff left I want to be able to render, for example, image overlays and sprite animations. But before I moved on to that, I wanted to revisit my physics backend as well as add some other, I guess, utility features, convenience features, if you will. So I wanted to make my life easier. So what I've done is I've just sort of retooled a lot of how. So I use PhysX as my physics engine, and I sort of had a little bit of a spaghetti mess in terms of how I wrapped it up. So I just did a lot of cleaning on the back end to make sure that I had a nice clean API around some things. I started implementing physics joints, so you actually there's really no visible difference right now. All of these are features I've had in here already. I can add a rigid body component, and then this creates a PhysX object, which then represents an object in my scene. But so I'm just sort of fleshing that out a little bit more. And while I've been doing that, I also added a neat new feature because, and this is something that Unity has too. They call it prefabs, where you can actually save different configurations for your scene objects, so that if you have a scene object and you go, okay, I'm going to be using this a lot, let me save it, and then I can pull it in later and maybe make some tweaks and modifications. So sort of like your own built-in checkpoint system for making scene objects. But I call it blueprints, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So what I can do is I can take a cube, which is one of my scene objects here, and I can drag it into my blueprints widget. And what that is going to do is it's going to create a blueprint of that cube. So that's pretty neat. And I can click on the blueprint, and right now it'll just give me all of the JSON data that represents that cube. So this is everything I need to recreate that cube scene object. So I think that's pretty neat. This actually wasn't too much work to stand up, because by default I've made it such that all of my components require a JSON serialization routine that says, okay, here is how you convert this object to JSON. So, because I figured that would be something that would save me a lot of time down the road, and I wasn't wrong. So, yeah, that worked pretty much out of the box when I set up at least the data pipeline. What was a little tricky was actually getting the widget dragging working properly, because I don't know if you guys use Qt, but I'm using a list view here and a tree widget, and those are sort of two different I guess paradigms in Qt. They're trying to deprecate the tree widgets and then make everything a view now, which I understand. It makes things a bit more flexible and configurable, but long story short, it just made things a little bit more of a headache to get working and dragging between widgets. But we're here. We're in it. So I would be remiss if I didn't show the opposite direction. So if I take this cube, I can drag it back into my scene. I don't know. I can add it at the root level, or I don't know. I can give it my light a child cube, for example. And so I did that. And let's see. This light is at 5.5. So if I zoom in on my scene, yep, there's another cube. So I had my first cube and now my new cube positioned where I have a light in the scene. Actually, it's a little bit offset since the cube has a local translation from when I save the prefab, so I can tweak that, play around with it. But yeah, I'm super happy with how that turned out. That is a huge time saver. You can now sort of save scene objects, plop them in, copy them over. It's a really good time. So I'm pretty happy that that wasn't too tough to stand up. So yeah, that's what I've been working on the last week or two. Next, as I mentioned, I'm going to implement physics joints, which is pretty much just going to be me wrapping up the way that PhysX does it in a way that's a bit cleaner, a bit of a nicer fit for how I've done things. And then I'm going to get back to some of the rendering stuff. So I'm having a lot of fun. And I think once I have 2D stuff rendering, I'm going to move on to actually doing some game design and game development. So that's also super exciting. But knowing me, I might just end up going back to some engine work and adding in stuff from my list of features. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for listening, folks. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm always happy to chat. And yeah, until next time.